All right, everyone. Welcome. I'm calling us to order. These little cafe tables don't allow for the spreading out of papers that I'm used to at my home office. Can we take attendance? Thank you, Karen. We're coming back from our closed session, and I just want to note that today is, of course, a momentous occasion for us. Oh, there she is. As we're saying goodbye to our library director, Josie Parker, who has been here at the library for over 20 years, and this is her last official day in her service to AADL. So I know we have some folks who'd like to speak to her and about her. And we're also later in the agenda looking at our semifinalists for our new director search. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. Discussion. I actually need to amend the agenda. In speaking with the staff, we have decided that we are going to strike item A in new business. We are going to bring that back to the agenda next month. So I'm moving for an amended agenda that strikes item A in new business. Can I have a motion for the amendment?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion about the agenda? All right. All in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? All right. Agenda moves along. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you to whomever that was behind the mask. I think it was it Anna first? Okay, and then a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kareen. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, if there's none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All right, any opposed? All right. That moves us right into citizens' comments. Karen.
All right, the first person on the list is Prue Rosenthal.
Prue.
Hello, Karen, I didn't get a chance to say hi.
Welcome, Prue.
Hello, everybody. I am here to say about 4 words because there are other people coming behind me. I was on the board the shortest time of the 3 of us. And for that time I was on the board, I loved every minute. I was on the board for a little bit with Jim and a little bit with Jamie. And I was on the board always when Josie was in charge of the library. I first met Josie when I was chair of an organization called the Ladies Library Association, which you'll hear more about. It's an organization that has for a long time bought art, books, videos, art, all things art for the library over a long period of time. And I came in, I was new as a chair of the committee, and it was probably pretty soon after you came, became director, because it was a while ago. And I sat down and we chit-chatted a little bit, and I asked Josie where she was from, and she says she was from Laurel, Mississippi. And I happened to have 2 friends of my parents when I was growing up, also lived in Washington, but also came from Laurel, Mississippi. So right away I knew where she was from, and we had a connection that we made over that. And that started a wonderful friendship, which I had for the years until I became was on the board. And Josie taught me, I think she taught all of us, but I'm speaking for myself, about how, not only how a library should be run, but what a library is and who a library is for, and challenged us to help her, Eli, and the staff to think about what libraries can do for people. And we did all the things that you're doing now, but we also were invited to look at the bigger picture as to how libraries function and who they function for. And I really hadn't thought about it until she introduced me, and I think many of us. And I thank you profusely for that. You were wonderful guides for us and I loved being on the board when you were on the board, and I appreciate it so much. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed as much as I did.
Thank you, Prue.
I'm gonna be out of order, and I'm just gonna say that when Prue and I talked about the law, her friend's last name was Wisner. And there's a building in Arbor, Mississippi, or what's called the Wisner Building. And it's the only place in town where anybody could go to see any kind of fine arts or production. And as an elementary school child, it's the first time I ever saw a play on stage.
Amazing.
And it was at the Wisner Building, which is named for her.
Jan Barney Allen.
Welcome, Jan.
Thank you. Prue's 4 words grew a bit. She was attracted to the microphone, I'm sure. And I'm attracted to familiar faces that I remember before you were members of the board, and when you were members and president of the board, and when you were running for the board. I still have a campaign poster in my garage for you, if you run again. And other familiar faces here, especially Jim. I've known Jim for a long time. But I'm not supposed to talk about me, so it'll be harder for me to think of something to say, but not in this situation. I'm also a member of Ladies Library Association, which Prue mentioned, and we knew each other in that sense, because as you've heard earlier, if not today, but yesterday, about the Ladies Library Association, which is 150 years old, and now considering changing its name to something else because our new treasurer is embarrassed when she goes into the office of her of the stock market to say, I'm here to talk about Ladies Library, and they all say, Ladies Library. And so we're going to hold on to that and see what really happens. But we've decided we're not ashamed of being ladies, and we're not ashamed of being a library advocate. But I'm also here because I didn't know much about libraries. I had various businesses in town and taught at Tappan and public schools. But the library told me what my community was about. And when Josie decided that indeed she wanted to bring more to the library than perhaps had been expected of the library director, she took a course in business at Harvard. And that's a kind of a surprising thing to do. But she made this institution one that familiarizes the community at large with its mission, and it governs that, it creates that mission by what works with the community. And it's strengthened our community, it makes it unusual among community libraries, and look at all of our branches and how well they function. So I'm very proud to have been illuminated to that fact through Josie and Eli, and very proud of my association and your continued efforts. And I also want to introduce to you the next speaker, who really has something to say, because he was the first elected member of the board after the library became a district library. And for 22 years he served on that board before he got to sit next to me in the library board meetings. And we just realized when we were looking at how you're all seated, we couldn't have whispered to each other and listened to us, which we occasionally did. So I'm glad to introduce. Are you awake yet?
I am here.
Okay, and you're the next speaker.
All right. I need to start by saying that I forgot something. I remember lots of things. Karen's telephone number is 327-4263. Is it not? Huh?
It's fine.
Yours.
Long ago.
But I have, for years, kept in a dresser drawer that which I forgot this evening, which are little twigs made into pencils and erasers, which I meant to bring. I will bring them to you, Josie, later on, because I suspect you don't have any anymore. These were souvenirs of 2 of our branches. And it is worth saying that one of the things that is most important of all was the addition of better facilities, sadly lacking the replacement of this one, which looks beautiful today, thank you. Although I agree with Jan that it would have been no fun sitting in these and couldn't visit with each other. At any rate, I want to say that when Marianne left us, and I have subsequently visited Marianne a number of times in Orlando, she was a dear friend, and we were to pick a new director. We did not go through a national search, although there were those on the board that wanted us to do so, and it created some conflict. But the decision amongst the very small committee that was appointed to choose a temporary director took us, I don't know, minutes maybe. And Marianne's greatest gift to the library was Josie. And what we knew then was that she was the person we wanted, and that she had the confidence of everyone who knew her. She had my confidence from the day I met her, when she ran me down, or chased me down rather, on Main Street in Chelsea to give me hell about, you did. I know. I had an office in Chelsea at the time, and I had walked into the library there and offered to give them a big, fat, very expensive book, A Who's Who in America, which Josie later pointed out to me on the street that they had no business wasting their money on, but I happened to have had a copy that I didn't want. And she was very sweet about it, but very direct. And she's been both sweet and direct ever since. What we knew when we asked her to be acting director was that she had our confidence. What we did not know was that she was a giant. And that for the 20 years she has served this library, she has been like no other before her. And because I think everyone else has said everything that needs to be said, I can simply say that I will miss her. I'm certain that AADL will miss her, and that because she's going on to an equestrian world that I wake up with every morning in my life, I know that she will be happy, and that we will be the better for it. And thank you for the honor of serving under you for all those years.
All right, we have a letter from the Friends of the Ann Arbor District Library. And it says, congratulations, Josie, from the Friends of the Ann Arbor Library Board and all our volunteers. Thank you, Josie, for making our library system a 5-star one that is a model for all libraries over Michigan and the United States. Thank you for hiring an amazing staff who proved their mettle during the pandemic offering support of all kinds to our community. Thank you for managing the AADL budgets so ably that you created new branches and provided new services to meet the evolving needs of the Ann Arbor area. And thank you for supporting the Aadl, or FAADL, with your perspective, counsel, and understanding. And thank you for your outstanding leadership, and best of luck learning to sail. And the next one that we have on the list is Alan Haber.
Hello, Board. I am Alan Haber of the Allen and O'Deal story that LaRon Williams told yesterday for those of you who were there. And first, and I am here to apologize for the distress caused by my question about bringing Juneteenth to the center of the city. Eli asked me in great distress, how could I? And so to explain, LaRon is an old friend. He had those of you who were there row with me across seas and lakes and climb with me up mountains and hills for the meaning of life and what it is all about. And then he told a story about going through the woods, and you just have to keep asking. And when the question time came, any questions, even political, several children asked. And then there was silence, and he asked again, any more? And I had to ask about what he and I had just talked about before his story started for Black History Month. How to get Juneteenth and the Ann Arbor Black community celebrating and recognized in the center of our city on June 19th. Usually the parade and the party are off on the edge, Fuller Park to Wheeler Park. Now, true, I am an activist for the community commons across the Library Lane and Liberty Plaza. It is not my project. It was voted into the city charter, ideally as a partnership with the library, also a commons. I did not mean to intrude this once contentious question into the celebration for Josie. I love Josie. I love the work you have done, she has done. I came to join in celebrating her good work. I appreciate that she once called me her avatar. I didn't anticipate LaRon was going to tell me a story. You just have to keep asking. But then I do just have to keep asking. We should all see the block as a center of the city, as a partnership between the library and the Community Commons Initiating Committee and the whole process through to the creation of a beautiful and deep development in the center of Ann Arbor for the bicentennial and forever as an Ann Arbor destination where everyone of every community can find themselves welcome, safe, and well represented and reflected. And second, that was first, as a request, not out of place, I wish and hope the library board would schedule a meeting or a big time on your agenda to hear the plans of the initiating committee and the Green Team gardeners and the process underway. We should be partners. It would be good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Beth Fitzsimmons.
Good evening. This is a tribute to Josie Parker. To paraphrase the children's book, Millions of Cats, as the old woman said to her husband, "We have the most beautiful cat in the world, for we have seen hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats." As the former chairman of the National Commission of Libraries and Information Services, NCLIS, from 2004 to 2008, I may not have seen thousands of libraries, but I know that Ann Arbor has the best library system in the country. And how do I know this? Unbeknownst to you, I was regularly receiving calls from professional recruitment agencies asking about our library and specifically Josie Parker. For while Josie was adding branch libraries to our system, many large library systems around the country were dying, either from poor management or poor funding. Although many of the job positions were interesting and more lucrative, Josie chose to stay in Ann Arbor. Clearly, she was well supported by the trustees, both the former board and the current one, and for that I say thank you. So, what then makes this woman so special with that wonderful Southern accent? Josie is a library leader, not only in Ann Arbor, but in Michigan and around the country. She is often ahead of the curve in many library developments and technologies. She has a unique business acumen and a solid understanding of financial matters. She has developed good partnerships with the city and with the university. But most importantly, as was mentioned earlier, Josie knows her community. And this is the key to her success. She knows what people want to read and their needs that the library can meet. She knows why and how libraries need to change and how to keep them relevant. Bridget Lamont, a former Illinois state librarian, said, "Josie Parker is amazing. She is the reason that the Ann Arbor Public Library has thrived." So, to a good friend and a professional colleague, I wish you, Josie, a well-deserved retirement for a job well done for all of us. You have made us proud.
Yes.
We have one last one, an audio file, please.
Hi, Josie. This is Larry Neal, your little brother colleague over here at the Clinton Macomb Public Library. I say little brother because it feels as though I've been looking up to you and trying to follow in your footsteps for the last 20 years. You earned your library degree from Michigan and became the director of a library system you love. Then I did. You became the president of the Michigan Library Association, and after the dust settled from a badly needed overhaul, then I did. You built awesome library branches which provided inspiration for my new branches. Finally, in a moment of questionable sanity in 2017, I at last caught up to you when we both became adjunct associate clinical professors at the University of Michigan School of Information. Well, I have to admit that I tried taking your course on personnel management, but did not pass. However, as has happened so often over the years, I was inspired by your practical, common sense, and brilliant approach to running a world-class library system. Just a small snippet of your wisdom caused me to rethink and completely restructure my library system in 2020. And even now, I still find myself asking, what would Josie do when much of the library world is going in one direction, such as closing for the recent Snowmageddon, and I'm pondering the opposite. Yes, I did check the AADL website just to confirm my thoughts on remaining open. Congratulations on starting a new chapter in your life tomorrow. Thank you is hardly enough to express my gratitude for your 20 years of inspiration, leadership, vision, and the sharing of your talents for the betterment of your community, the library community, and the library profession. I am a better director because of you and wish you all the best in the future.
Thanks, Karen. Well, I love that we are receiving accolades through all forms of media for Josie tonight. And I also do want to thank Jan, Prue, and Ed for coming out, especially to celebrate and congratulate Josie on her retirement. These are legends and leaders of this library, former board members, and I had the great privilege and pleasure of serving with all of them when I started, and I just thank you for building us a foundation, and thanks for coming to celebrate Josie tonight. That will move us on from citizens' comments. I mean, that's just the first part of the meeting. So let's go swiftly to financial reports. Eli, you have financial reports for us this month. Thank you.
All right, financial report begins on the page labeled 26 in your packet. That's PDF page 28. Just to touch on some of the highlights, we've received 99% of our annual budgeted tax receipts. Fund balance is holding steady at $5.2 million as of January 31st. Moving on to the next page. So we have received $10 million of accrued revenue at this point. Again, that's 99% of our expected revenue has already been received for the year, so we're in good shape as far as the revenue goes. Our expenditures total $9.6 million, of which $456,000 has not yet been paid, meaning prepaid. It's usually subscriptions and things that are paid over the course of the year. Year-to-date expenditures, or year-to-date revenues exceed expenditures by just short of $1 million. And our revenues are at 58% of the approved budget, and expenses are at 52% of the approved budget. Because of the accrual, you can generally count on the percentage of revenue representing the percentage through the year that we are. So you can see we are spending a bit behind the revenue, which is where we like to be at this time of year. Actual cash receipts, as we said, 99.4% of the budget. Actual cash expended is 55% of the budget. The grants and memorials, the Friends balance is currently $10,000. And you can see in your packet the balance of the other funds. And then we have the balance sheet showing our current status. One thing to draw your attention to on the statement of revenues and expenditures, you can see the interest income was negative again this month. That's to be expected, as we cannot invest in securities, we can only invest in bonds. And bonds get hit hard when inflation goes up. So a big part of the inflation is the impact on the expected revenue. We receive less revenue than expected from the interest on bonds, and that's what you see there. So it's not actually loss of money, it is reported as loss of money because of the accounting. Any questions about anything in the financial packet? Okay.
I think we're good.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Eli. Next, we're going to turn to Sherlanya, who joins us tonight with the library report.
All right.
Thank you. Just make sure your mic is
Okay.
good. Yeah.
All right, next slide, please. Okay, so this is showing you how we have updated our signage about masking in the library according to the new CDC guidance. So what you see is there are 3 possible levels, the low, the medium, and the high, as the CDC has put out, and 3 different masking signs. So if the levels are low, our signs will just state that masks are welcome in the library. If we are at medium, as we are currently, our signage states masks are recommended in the library. And should we move to high, the signage will return to saying masks are required in the library. We keep in mind that we have all sorts of users in all sorts of situations here, which is why even though the CDC guideline currently says that people can be unmasked indoors, we are trying to walk that balance and be considerate of all so that the library can be as safe as possible for all of our users. So that's what you're seeing there. You also see the note at the bottom that talks about our mitigation strategies that we are maintaining during this time. We will continue to monitor the ventilation. We will continue to ask our staff to wear masks. We anticipate that that will be the case for quite some time. And we will continue the staff screening that we do. Each day, staff are filling out a screening questionnaire, and we will continue with the testing and reporting that we have in place right now. Next slide, please. Events are starting back up. So I'll kind of walk you through the list of what we have planned currently, but I first want to tell you that we have based this on the demand that we're hearing, right? So like everything that you see on the slide today are things that we have heard about, more or less, the first ones. So preschool story time. In March, there will be one occurring weekly in the system. Letterpress lab will be resuming in the spring. It's something we've heard about throughout the suspension of events. Emerging Writers is another one. We have 2 of those on our schedule for March. You can see them now. Sewing lab will also resume in the spring. We have to do a couple of things to make sure that all of the equipment is in running order for that. We're still looking at the possibility of Record Store Day. And just as last year, we are actively engaged in summer festival planning. And there will be more to come. There are one-off events that we're adding to the schedule as it makes sense, and just stay tuned. Next slide, please. Self-booking of rooms is coming soon. We are working on an easier interface to make those easier to use for people. We are also working on Zoom and room integration so that one can just go in a room, be all set with the Zoom setup. We are planning to launch this quietly in March for April dates. As soon as we get the improvements that we have planned up and running, that's when we'll launch. We know that there's some interest for this in the community, which is why as soon as we're able to sort of turn that on, we will be doing so. That's what's meant by the quiet launch. And our intent is to be back to our pre-pandemic model once we reach April. Next slide, please.
Can I ask a
Yes,
question
please
about
do.
that? So what you're saying is that you essentially book a kind of hybrid setup ultimately, like people want to be in a room but also be able to Zoom from the room at the same time?
Correct, using the
Got it.
screens that are in there. This is a new addition to the lobby. We were contacted by Home of New Vision and asked if we would provide a space for this vending machine in order to provide Narcan here in the buildings. We said yes. You can see that right in the lobby. And once it's stocked, it's not stocked currently, these products will be available for free for patrons or library users who would like them. Next slide. Full Moon and Festive Fools are happening this year. We've always been involved in these events, and this year we have taken on more of a co-producer role. We're super excited for that. These are all ages events that are exactly the sort of thing that the library likes to participate in. And upcoming are a series of luminary and puppet making workshops that will take place out at the plaza. AADL merch is available through the Friends shop. You'll see these hoodies and crew necks, both in the style that comes in at the waist and the style that is more square. That is available through March 7th. Next slide. Second grade visit kits. As most of you know, normally pre-COVID times we would have the initiative where we bring each second grader in our district through to the library. We've been unable to do that, but what we've done during this time are to provide second grade visit kits that, you know, are a friendly introduction to the library. There's a craft activity in there. And what you're seeing here is the library delivering these kits to the schools where they're able to get in the hands of the second graders. Through these kits, there's also an opportunity for parents to sign up for library cards for their children. We tend to try to do that at second grade, as that's when many of our readers become independent readers. Next slide. And here we have our social media comments. We have a fun interaction here. Somebody was looking for some Captain Underpants books, as one does. And then when they got a response from our staff, they realized that it was one of our librarians who they knew from story time. So that was super fun to see. Next slide. We also connected a beloved bookmark with its owner when it came to us through the Dropbox, and made someone super happy with that. Next slide. All right, so we had a first-time visitor at Westgate, and someone was impressed. They found it to be more modern than downtown, but seemed to be pretty happy that it didn't have that sterile feeling that modern buildings can have. Next slide. And so we're going from new to old. We had someone who was excited to find out some local history information. They were doing a bit of genealogy, and then they found out that they could view old newspapers through the library, and we're very excited to find that. Next slide. old is new again, records. Someone was super thrilled to be able to find out that they could check out records at the library. Looks like they're into trying something new, and the records each week on Tuesdays, and these records seem like they're going to be a part of their quest. Next slide, please. And this one was super fun. We have one of our artists who made this post. This is somebody who came to us through our call for artists that we did earlier, and these are part of what we did with that project was to select art prints for our collection, and this is somebody who is super excited to see that these are indeed in the collection. And he continues on, you can't quite see it there, to mention by name the staff members who we worked with, so that was also pretty fun to see. And we have some desk comments. One patron thanking us for the content on the iPads, somebody expressing their love for Mallett's Creek, also more love for the iPads here, and we have someone who is excited about the Easy Reach Hold Shelf. This is something that we did in response to patrons who were having difficulty pulling their holds off of the shelf. And so we allow our patrons to designate easy reach shelves, and then they don't have to go through the same bending that they would have done before. And finally, we have this fun mural. I think you recognize the color. It's right above the picture books in the youth department. It's a David Zen, and you can see that it's right up there celebrating what happens here in the libraries, and it's in recognition of Josie's service. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, reflections? Yes, go ahead, Molly,
Sorry, I have a couple of questions.
please.
For the once a week preschool, is it gonna be weekdays, weekends? Is there gonna be like a alternating?
Sure. So what we have currently is we have their primarily, they are right now the ones that we have on the schedule. They're happening during the week, during the day. What we know from our numbers is that that's usually the bread and butter time when our audience is most likely to use them. As we begin to fill in our calendar, we will increase more into the schedule, the type of schedule that we've seen before. But as we build all of our events, what we're doing at this moment is looking to see what that use looks like, and then we'll take it from there. We understand that we're walking into a new normal and not the old normal, so we're taking things step by step so that we can come up with a plan that makes sense for the use that we have.
Awesome. And I have another question.
Go for
which
it.
is about the CDC risk levels.
Yes.
Which my understanding is that the new way that the CDC is calculating risk levels actually tolerates a much higher level of risk, but still calls it low. And I'm curious if you considered other ratings, or if it's just sort of like we've got to stick with the CDC despite the acceptance of risk.
I'm going to have Eli talk to that one.
So we're eager to get out of the public health business.
Yeah, I imagine.
And one of the things that's part of this decision-making process was looking at how that corresponds to the actual risk in the community and the trend lines. And while there's certainly a fair amount of criticism happening online, it is also fairly well recognizing of the level of risk that we've observed from our staff and from the public at the library. So while it is a higher level, there is a higher level of new cases in these different levels, we're very much recognizing that what they're setting up for is to be able to say, it's going up again, time to put the masks back on and have people listen. So we wanted to make sure, we don't want to depart from the standards that are being put out for the community. And while, again, there's a lot of different opinions about it, we also see that there's a fair amount of opinion in support of this set of moves in recognition of the public sentiment. And while that's not a great thing to make public health risk decisions based on, it is very much part of the adherence calculation. So we basically don't want to be in the position of having to decide what level of masking is required. So we are already, by saying in medium that masks are recommended, being more conservative than what the guidelines call for, which is to say that no masks are required at all indoors. And we continue, we will not be enforcing, we will not be picking fights about masks inside the building. We've not been doing that for quite a while. Does that answer your question, Molly?
It does, yeah, thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Scott?
So just one question. I think I heard you say we're planning to have events related to festivals at the plaza. I just want to make sure I heard that clearly. So just for the public, that refers to the facility we purchased, Parkland Plaza in Scioto Township, for the archives and other purposes. So I'm excited to see that the public is going to start to get some use out of that space soon.
Hooray.
So not so much a question. I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yep, you're correct.
That's exciting. Using the new space. Sewing lab, a personal favorite of mine. Jamie?
Yeah, this is not a question, but just like something I wanted to note that I thought was nice is like the way you described the different options for the staff gear that we can purchase through March 7th, right? By the shapes of the clothing, I thought was really inclusive and nice, and thank you for doing it that way.
You're welcome.
So noted. Indeed. It did not go unnoticed, I should say.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Anyway,
Very
carrying on.
good. Very good. There was another hand, I think.
I was just snapping.
I was snapping. Very good.
It's so hard with like not being able to.
I know. I wanted to circle back around on the Narcan dispenser and just make sure everyone is aware that it's happening. We discussed, the leadership team and I discussed this last week. I asked some questions about just like height of buttons and kids and that kind of thing. And it's all checking out. And I think, we're, as we often do, are participating in an important public health initiative. But it's also the kind of thing that you shouldn't be surprised once people start seeing it, that they might have questions about it. So that's just for everyone to just have that heightened awareness of it. And now back to Sewing Lab, which I'm excited to see is coming, which is a perfect
Nice
personal
segue.
favorite of mine. Yes, thank you. All right. Anything else on library report? Okay, moving us along. Thank you, Shalanya.
You're welcome.
We return to old business and our discussion of the library director search. So in a couple of minutes, I'm going to text Karen Miller, our search consultant, and ask her to join the call via Zoom. We'll only hear her, we won't see her today, and she's really here to listen and chime in as we need her. Before I ask Karen to join, I want to say a few things just to kind of give us some orientation on where we're at. So as a reminder, Corrine, Dharma, and I are the executive committee and also serving as the search committee. And we have been meeting with our search consultants on a regular basis. We have vetted a pool, a very healthy and robust pool of very qualified candidates. As of last week, we interviewed 8 highly qualified semifinalists, which were chosen by the search committee with the guidance from Bradbury Miller. Tonight, we're bringing to you 4 candidates who we believe have the greatest potential for this position at the library. And in advance of this meeting, you received the complete materials of all applicants for the job, and you also received our recommendation of the 4 finalists for discussion tonight. That catches us up on process, so we're all out in the open here. As we continue to move through this process, we move very squarely out into the public space for the next phase. So before we dig into the finalists, I want to ask you all to do a tiny little exercise. And Dharma and Karina and I have done this exercise already, and it's a spontaneous one that often happens in interviews like this. When the candidate turns to you and says, "What are you looking for in the next director?" Which is really a question about what we're looking for in a leader, but also what we're hoping for in our system, in our organization, in our community. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to sketch a couple of ideas nothing too complicated, but I want to hear from everyone. What are you looking for in the next library director? So just give you a few minutes to kind of free write and reflect on that. And in the meantime, I'm going to summon Karen via text to join us. Will you all in the booth let me know when Karen is? She's there. Okay, thank you.
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Karen. You're like the voice of God in our room.
So pervasive.
Karen also has the most amazing microphone because she is an amateur podcaster. This is her. And so she has really good audio when you talk to her.
That was alarming, Jim, but thank you.
All right, just a few more seconds to finish your thought. So, of course, pretty much every single candidate asked us this question, which is a very common question to ask when you're interviewing for a job like this, which put us a little bit on the spot. And I thought this would be a good warm-up, actually, for us to get ready to have these conversations next month, which are both wonderful and awkward in the way that they are entirely public. So I'm gonna call on you, and then I'm gonna call on the first person, and you can share one or two of your thoughts, and then please popcorn and choose another person, and we'll go on like that. And try to stick to your notes, to avoid that halo effect, right? To just like go with what you're thinking. And I'm going to start with Anna Solomon.
All right. So there were two main things that came to mind for me, which was, one is the continuation of the current vision of the Ann Arbor District Library. I really feel like things are going in a good direction. I feel like the creativity and playfulness and innovation, the work on diversity, equity, and inclusion are all really going very well. And so I think that that piece is important, that the person aligns with all of those aspects. And then the second one, which I think, we've heard so many people say about Josie's leadership, which is it's so relationship-centered, both in the staff and in community partnerships. And so I think the person who steps into that role has big shoes to fill in continuing to really value relationships and people at the center of their leadership. Scott.
So on a similar note, the first thing I wrote was people. One of the things I said when Josie announced her retirement was that great leaders build great teams, and I think that's been a big strength of this library, is we have an incredible team thanks to Josie's leadership. And in doing that, knowing when to trust people and to empower them to really run forward, and when they have great ideas, and not be afraid to be a leader and try new things and not just look at what everybody else is doing and really understand what the institution's role is in the community and how we can best serve it. And I will go to Dharma.
Okay, I said someone that will continue the culture of innovation to meet the community's ever-evolving needs, and also just keeping in mind, like, to meet even more of the community's needs. So I guess I see continuity again in this culture of innovation, but that by itself means it's always got to be responding to constant change. And then I think closely related to that is, like, I think we were really well positioned because of that culture of innovation to respond to an unprecedented crisis. And I think that's a real strength that we should try to maintain. And I'm going to popcorn it to Corrine.
All right, so similar to what everyone else said, my top one was someone who will continue to say yes to creativity, innovation, and inclusion. I also wrote someone who is willing to build. And finally, someone who will work well with the existing team. Oh, I guess I will popcorn it to Molly.
Yeah, one of mine is very similar to yours. I said someone with an inclination towards yes. I think that's really been, we've seen the value of that with Josie's leadership, and the cultivation of people is another one. Someone with an orientation towards community needs and curiosity about the whole community, and sort of seeking out the needs and interests of the people who are maybe less vocal in Ann Arbor. Yeah, I feel like it's all, everyone said it at this point, but I'm going to popcorn it to Jamie. I haven't gone yet.
Well, I was worried mine was boring, but now I feel good because it's different.
Yay!
I love that we always have enough money for stuff.
I did that.
If there's a cool idea, it's always like, oh, sure, we can swing that. We have a little bit back here. We can put towards that. So I think what I am looking for is just like continued balance of creativity, but also like almost like a conservatism with financials, where like there's like, we're never like stretching too far, so that when the next cool thing comes, we have a little bit back so that we can try it. That's like something I love about being on the board, because I never feel stressed that we are right on the razor's edge with money. So I would love to see someone take the reins who has a kind of similar approach there.
Terrific. For me, I think I'm the last person, right? For me, as almost everyone else has said, we realized that we have something special going here, and the idea that we don't want to do anything to disturb, disrupt the specialness of the creativity, the innovation, the being a leader in the field and getting out ahead. I'm not waiting to like be told what the next thing is, but like creating the thing, the next big thing that is. And I would also say there is, I think, a need for a person who understands, I think maybe it was Molly who gestured towards this, of like the parts of the community that aren't so vocal, that we're not serving as well, for whom the library is not convenient. And I think there's room to explore there, and that I'm looking for a person who can show us that path, and also really have that vision for the next 20 or 5 or however many it may be. How'd that feel, everybody? Any reflections, synthesis, thoughts?
I'm glad we were consistent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's good.
What else?
We just described Josie.
Yeah. Well, there's no one like Josie.
I know.
We are very lucky in that way. Okay, so Karen's with us, and I want to go back to my notes here. Thanks for indulging me that exercise. I think it will help us move through the next bit of business. What I want to frame out is, right, you all looked at finalists, and I think part of a strategy for understanding what we might need is imagining something that complements what we have, or something that changes what we have, or something that accelerates what we have, and all of these folks bring a little bit of a different kind of skill set. So what we have put in front of you as finalists, and let me remind you, you have a key to the finalists, and we will be discussing finalists A, B, C, and D. We are refraining from saying their names in the meeting tonight to allow Bradbury Miller to contact them all before their names go entirely public later this week. So we have two candidates here in this pool, as you've probably seen, with significant and meaningful experience at the director level, leading systems that are similar to the Ann Arbor District Library, with similar challenges and similar communities. And we have two candidates who are working as very high-level administrators in library systems and are very, very ready, clearly, for the next step into the director level. I can probably say a little bit about each to kind of frame out maybe and summarize what we think we're looking at with each of these candidates. We can have some dialogue about them. I just want to remind you that we are making a recommendation to you, and that what we will do is we'll make a motion for these four finalists to go ahead for a full interview process. It is within your right and purview to pull somebody else out of the pile for discussion if you like to do that. And we can do that here tonight. I do just want to remind you, they've been very heavily vetted by a search firm and by a group of your peers working in committee, spending many, many hours.
So can I ask a question?
Yes, you may, please.
And just briefly, really, like, I don't need you to go in depth, but sort of the 8 candidates,
Yeah.
was it, like, how did you choose this 4? You know, like, I don't know, and anybody who was a part of that process can jump in to answer that question, but I'm just kind of curious, and, in short answer.
Sure. I mean, I think that all 4 of the folks that we're suggesting move forward were standout interviewees, and their interviews brought additional texture to the skill set that we saw on the page. Those that we also went in with each of them with a kind of unique question based on what we had gathered from what we gathered from their resume and cover letter materials that we were probing on. Some handled that question better than others, and so in certain cases, those were really tailored to their specific skill set, where we had questioned like, oh, would what they do apply to what we do or what we need out of the process? And I think for me, oftentimes those questions were decisive in certain ways. Search committee?
So I would add that after we went through the interviews, before we had any discussion, we sort of did an independent ranking of who our top candidates were, and I think we were pretty on the same page independently, and so it was very easy for us to go from there to pick the top 4.
That's good to know, yeah.
I have a process question.
Yes, please.
Are we attempting to, in addition to their names, keep them entirely, I guess, should we refrain from referring to their institutions or other details that are in their packages while we have our discussion tonight?
I think that's the safest approach.
Okay.
Ultimately, pretty much by the end of the week, this will all be public knowledge, but we're trying to give folks a couple of days to make sure that everybody knows they're
Yeah, totally.
going to be public in that way. Yeah, so how should we proceed from here? This is one of the strange things about doing this in public. We're all learning as we go.
You had said that you would maybe talk us through a little bit about each
Yeah.
of the four candidates. That'd be super helpful. I think I might have questions about one of the four who aren't on the list, but I think it probably makes sense to save that till after.
Yep, absolutely. Let me find notes. All right, here we go. First candidate, working in a system of candidate A, working in a system of very similar scale to the system that we are currently in. In terms of some of the highlights, and let me just, parse through my notes here, which is part of the challenge of doing this. I want to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn. One of the things that I walked away with candidate A is an understanding that they had worked their way up through the system and had done many, many jobs in the system and has been now the director of the system, I believe, for 6 years. There have been some interesting initiatives during that time. One that I was particularly interested in was an initiative in terms of cultivating relationships with all of the superintendents of the local public schools in order to better deliver library cards and services to the children that were in these schools. I think that was a very interesting indication of their kind of ability to think about relationship building within the community, working with many, public officials and leaders to be able to cultivate and actually move towards kind of programmatic kind of initiative. There was also, I think, with many of these candidates, mention of very specific kinds of DEI initiatives. This candidate in particular, really thinking about anti-racism in the context of their work and imagining and deploying how that works in terms of procedures and policies, which is work that we have also done here. I think we were all surprised to learn that this candidate has 19 direct reports, which is an incredible number of direct reports for any person, which also raised, I think, a question of like, whoa, that's a very big structure that maybe you need to address to make your life as a leader and a manager more efficient. It's going to be one of the things I think we want to probe on. He also indicated that they're not looking for a job, that they loved their current job, but that this job in Ann Arbor was a very special, unique one. Another recurring theme with candidates. This is a plum job, in case you didn't know. It's a job that everybody wants. And they're happy to let us know how great they think we are.
Including the board.
How did I do with that first candidate?
Yes, I would also say that this candidate very clearly did their homework and looked at the functioning of the board and called out the effectiveness and the relationship between leadership and the board as being something that was really appealing.
Yeah. I think it's also fair to say one of the things that we are challenging amongst ourselves and is this question of sort of, what our biases are towards the way certain kinds of leaders looked. And this candidate made a really, so the specific question we asked was about a comment that they made in their pre-interview, which was about trying to resist what they refer to as comfort hires, sort of like the easy kind of sort of the hire that everyone would understand as kind of a legible person to be in that role, and how they're trying to like push against that kind of bias in hiring in their own space. And so we asked, why wouldn't you be a comfort hire for us? And so I think it's important to say that this person actually, you know, in a lot of ways, is an obvious and good fit and a good choice, which is why they are being proposed as a finalist, but also is not is not unconventional in any way. They're very much on track. Candidate A. It's really hard to do this.
You're doing great.
Okay.
It's like, it's fine for us, I think, and you're in the hot seat.
I know. I can just, my mask feels like 7,000 degrees right now.
You're doing fine. Keep going.
Also, this candidate let us know that they watch our board
I'm
meetings.
sure, I know.
So they know what our dynamic is like. And it's also fun. Okay. Candidate B. Candidate B does not have director level experience, but is a director of programs community engagement at a major urban library system. Creative, innovative, just entrepreneurial programmer and community engagement master. They're very impressively, over the period of 10 years, turned a $50,000 budget into a $1 million budget and completely reorganized the community engagement and development efforts around which was, in their own words, a kind of suburban or ex-urban population to actually serve the neighborhoods and the people in those neighborhoods in what is a majority Black city or majority Black service area. Clearly very attuned to what it takes to build the relationships to do that kind of work, and also working in a model of true co-authorship, or essentially handing the means of the library system over to the communities and having the communities do with those resources what is most important to them. Impressive, exciting mind, interesting, to think about what a person like that could bring to a system like ours. What else does the search committee want to add? Corinne, Dharma?
That was a really good summary.
Okay. Questions? All right. Next candidate, candidate C. Candidate C, many of us are aware of this person's resume. Also a high-ranking administrative official working in a system that we know very well. This is an internal candidate that we are very pleased has made it to the finalist round. I will not speak further on this candidate, except to say it was an excellent interview, and we're looking to learn more. And I wonder what search committee members would add. Welcome.
I wouldn't add anything because I think we're also familiar
Yes.
with this candidate, and I definitely learned a lot from the resume, cover letter, and interview, and you know, has a lot going for them.
Is it okay to say that this person came up in several of the interviews as being a leader in the field?
Very good point.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We have in our midst a person who is really recognized as just an incredible and innovative leader in the field, broadly speaking, has shown incredible innovation internally. Many of the programs and projects that we know and love have been shepherded, created, stewarded by this person. And I think that we've all seen this person take on a variety of responsibilities, including financial work, including working very closely with many, many team members on the staff. This person brings a lot to the institution already, and that is why they are in the finalist pool. All right. Karen, are you still there?
I sure am.
Okay. Lastly, candidate D. Another candidate with director level experience, significant director level experience. Should have put my notes in order before I started this meeting. I think this person brings a very clear kind of mentality about what it takes to live in a civic ecosystem as a public library. I think one of the most impressive stories that we heard this person tell was of arriving in their current position and then being told essentially a month later that the city was pulling its funding entirely from the district and that they would need to go out and run a millage campaign in order to keep the system going, which was done over the period of about 5 months. And that millage was secured, and it is not a millage in perpetuity. So this director has to go out and work on that millage on a cyclical basis. I believe it's every 4 years, but I don't have my notes in front of me. And also has to work, of course, within the limits of what a director can do in order to support those kinds of campaigns, and work very, very closely with a leadership board like ours. I think questions about this particular person have to do with the leadership style and whether or not it is a leadership style that will sync with the culture that already exists, that we're so very aware of its specialness that we want to preserve it in some form, in its entirety if possible. And those are some questions that we were coming back to. Very kind of confident, straightforward approach to the work. This person didn't speak a whole lot on program initiatives, and so, which is not uncommon when you're talking about the executive director level, especially in a situation like this where there is such great attention to the sort of financial needs and health of the system. So that may be an area that we will want to probe more. Search committee?
I think you covered it for me.
Okay.
Same.
God.
Nice job.
All right, so those are the finalists that we're proposing to you, A, B, C, D. Questions, additional feedback, thoughts about other finalists? Yes, Molly.
So I have sort of like feedback about one and then questions about another one. So on paper, I was not super impressed with candidate D's experience in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Say D as
Sorry.
in?
Candidate D,
D as in dog.
D, yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Delta.
Thank you.
Their experience with diversity, equity, and inclusion, on paper, it didn't seem like a lot, and I'm curious about if there was more that came out in the interview.
I have to go back and look at my notes, and it might be.
I know that.
I have something.
Okay.
I can add something.
Yes, thank you, Karen.
Yes, and by the way, Brian is here too.
Oh, hi, Brian.
You look up at the ceiling as if you're there.
I know.
I know.
I like that Jim keeps looking at
I'm here.
I look at the ceiling too.
It's really weird to be a disembodied voice. Okay. I would just like to add that the candidate D, as in dog, that we are discussing. That person described some major programming that they were doing that was very focused on sort of EDI principles and certainly trying to bring diverse individuals to the community that they serve. So I think that that's kind of where the focus was, but it's certainly an area to continue to learn more about.
Yeah, and I'm looking back at my notes now as well. In previous role, was responsible for starting an English language learners program, working with BIPOC populations in the late 90s, and has been also, and is also a member of the MLK Commission in Mid-Michigan. Also mentioned working on a land acknowledgement for the system. So there was more there than I think was in the materials.
Okay, that's helpful. Some of the stuff that was in the materials felt, it felt more symbolic to me.
Yeah.
Sort of the words versus actions thing. So that's helpful, thank you. And then I was curious about candidate H. I forget what the call sign for H is.
Yes, H as in Henry, I don't know.
Henry, yes. I was really impressed with that application. Again, I only saw the paper, so I'm curious about what came out in the interviews that put this candidate lower down.
This was a terrific candidate, and no doubt. And I think if there was anyone that was just below the line, it was candidate H. And we were looking to bring you kind of a balance of folks with director level experience and those at that high administrative level who are ready for the next step. And they unfortunately just didn't make it in terms of our limiting ourselves to seeing 4 candidates in the final. But yes, terrific. I mean, I think of the folks who fell below the line, really one of the best. A candidate that was sort of hard to let go of.
Yeah.
So I think your instincts are right on there. And a candidate that Bradbury Miller has their eye on, I think, for other opportunities too, which is what I keep telling myself, is that every person, there is an opportunity for them.
Yes, candidate H definitely is on my list for future evaluations and recommendations.
This matrix that we have is really nice, and I guess I know the one that candidate H is an outlier in the size of budget that they've had to work with. So that would be a big jump. That's the main
Yes.
thing I notice in the materials.
Yeah, a lot of these folks are handling budgets that are not much larger, some are, but significantly larger than that. I would say that we didn't have any concern, I mean, in terms of the interview.
Okay.
Many of the folks that are working at this high administrative level are involved in that annual budget process. They are involved in facilities planning. It's really impressive to see just kind of the raft of responsibility.
So then, I guess, I think I understand the rationale a little bit about having people at a variety of levels, but it feels like if that's sort of a piece that's limiting to us, I'm wondering what you all feel in terms of like, is it important that we maintain that breadth of director level experience versus not in those final 4, or would you feel okay about bringing in people with, like, overall more people without director level experience? Does that feel like dangerous?
No, not at all. I mean, I think it's pretty much like a conversation that we had internally. I think you want to see, given that we have an internal candidate who's like in that profile, you want to see other candidates that look like that for sure, so that you understand kind of like what candidates like that can offer in general.
Cool.
But we could make a change tonight from the recommendation that we're making. Do you all want to add to that?
I think I would just say that the three of us, if I recall the exercise correctly, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we all independently had the same three that we definitely wanted in the school
Yeah.
before we engaged in even a conversation. And so I would say when it came down to like the fourth, that's where there was a little bit of disagreement, and I think that's when we started to think about balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add that you have a very strong pool of candidates, and it can be hard to choose because there's so much talent in this pool, in my opinion.
I mean, in many ways, we would add many of these applicants to our team, but when it came to, okay, but would they be the best fit as the director, we started to make difficult decisions, so.
Yeah, that's helpful.
That's really helpful. What do you think, like, what were you like, oh, okay, well, we talked to everyone, we're gonna ask them their opinion about this? Or was there anything that you felt like the three of you were somewhat limited in your ability to review, that you were like relieved that you get to come back out to the bigger group to ask us to weigh in?
I'm very direct, so I think I was very direct with the other committee members, so I definitely don't think there's anything that I didn't feel comfortable sharing with them when we were deliberating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for you all to meet these people so that you will see things that that you'll see other things undoubtedly. That's why we have a process like this.
And also to be clear, these were short, what were they, half hour each?
Yes.
So, I mean, there's a lot to be learned, I think, when we bring the candidates on site.
Yeah. We went through how many questions was it, Karen? 10?
We had 8 questions.
We had 8 questions in 30 minutes.
Wow.
And I think we actually learned a lot. And, it's hard for you to weigh in on exactly what these folks are going to be like until you meet them. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah, paper is one thing, but having it, so when we sat down with just the committee early on in the process, just to start talking about candidates, we had already had a phone conversation, Brian and I had, and so we had an opportunity that the others didn't, but we brought that information in note form to that discussion. And then, they've seen the documentation, they've heard from us our notes from those phone conversations, they've had an opportunity to spend 30 minutes with each one, which doesn't sound like a lot, but 8 questions gets you a lot of information, I think. And then you'll all have another opportunity to have even more interaction, plus you'll have the opportunity to access feedback from and anyone who participates in any kind of presentation or interaction with the candidates down the road.
I also think, Jamie, to kind of come back around to your question, is the amazing and also challenging situation we find ourselves in with a very viable internal candidate, and also folks that are really accomplished in their own ways. And coming back to the beginning of this agenda item, what do we want out of a new director? Where do we see the system going in the next 5, 10, 20? And what each of these people can offer in terms of that way forward. So I think it's very tricky. It's hard to know. Because when you sort of open up the box of possibilities, I think for me, my mind can go into a million different directions, and each of these people would offer something different and interesting as a path forward. All right, do I hear a motion to move candidates A, B, C, D forward for final interview?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Just appreciation for you three. It's a lot of work. And thank you for doing it, and thank you for doing what you just did. I know it was really difficult to do that knowing that all of them were listening to this.
That's right.
So, like, that's what it means to do this publicly, and I'm really grateful to do it with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for bearing with me. I, like all of you, have never done this before, and I want us to have a process where we all are participating and feel like we can raise the hand and say, actually, this doesn't feel right to me, or this feels right, and we should move ahead. So I appreciate that. And I'm like, oh, I just sound like a clod tonight. So thanks for following along. All right, so if there is no further discussion, we will take a vote. And I don't think we have to do roll call. We can just do it. Thank you. So all in favor? Aye?
Yes. Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Terrific. Well, congratulations. It's a big step, big step.
And thank you, Voices in the Sky.
You're welcome.
All right, so.
No kidding. Great job, you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen and Brian. You're welcome to stay with us. I have a couple more things. Actually, if you can hold on 1 second, I want to cover something while you're still listening. So I'm going to pass around, please also, if you made copies of anything that has, candidate name information on it, please take it with you. Do not leave it on the table. Okay, pass that around. I'm passing around a little table that I've made based on key dates that Brian and Karen and I have discussed. So today is February 28th. We have just confirmed finalists. Bradbury Miller will be calling and notifying those finalists of the next steps. Later this week, around March 2nd, Bradbury Miller will be sending us a draft interview questionnaire for the board to review. I really ask you to please be on the lookout for that and ready to respond promptly with your feedback on the questionnaire. Then we move into interview week. Monday, March 14th, mark your calendars. We have held this time already, but we will be back in this room and we will begin at 6 p.m. We will be having candidate presentations. This is a public meeting because we are all gathered. We have decided to allow the finalists to give their presentations via Zoom so that they can take their masks off and feel comfortable doing their presentation. We will watch them on the screen. We will be live streaming the meeting. It will be about a 10-minute presentation followed by 20 minutes of Q&A. And so we'll see all four of them between 6 and 9. Tuesday, March 15th, from 9 to 12:30, candidates will interview with two groups of staff. They'll interview with a leadership group and then with a diverse staff group made up of about 10 to 12 people for 30 minutes each. Sherlanya is coordinating the composition of those groups as we speak. And those conversations will be facilitated by Bradbury Miller. We, as a board, are not participating in Tuesday at all. The board will receive staff input via a survey. We will not receive that survey information until we have completed our interviews on Wednesday so as not to bias our process. Tuesday afternoon, candidates will be invited on a self-guided branch tour and exploration of Ann Arbor. Again, board does not participate. Candidates will receive instructions from Bradbury Miller for these self-guided branch tours. Then we are back here on Wednesday, March 16th. This is our full day. We'll be in this room at 9 a.m. We will be conducting 1-hour public interviews with each candidate. We will have a break for lunch. Lunch will be provided. That'll be from about 9 a.m. to 2:15. I believe we start in the morning with a little bit of prep time for us as a group, of course in public, and then candidates will be welcomed in for their interview. If all goes as planned, we will break at 2:15, and then we'll come back for deliberation and perhaps a decision. It's very important that once we open up the process that we do not discuss any details of the process outside of the public meeting, just as a reminder. So when we have lunch, we'll hang together in this room. We'll just do everything we can to not be able to steal away and have conversations, which inevitably happen. And so we just want to prevent and work against that as much as possible. Deliberation, decision-making in public. 2:15 to question mark, question mark, question mark. Perhaps the sky will open and the sun will shine and the answer will reveal itself very quickly. Perhaps we'll be deliberating into dinner time, and in that case, we'll have some dinner brought in and we'll keep on it. But please mark everything down in the calendar. That's why I created this for you. And Karen and Brian will be following up with more details on that. And then another bit of business that we need to take care of for the process, for the presentational interviews, we need a topic. And Karen and Brian have suggested a couple, and I'll shoot those out, but open to any and all suggestions. I'd just like to leave tonight with a decision about what that topic is. One topic might be to choose an aspect of the strategic plan and show us how you would implement it. Another option might be show us what year one looks like under your leadership, or whatever time period you'd want to invoke. Open to other ideas if there are any thoughts off the top of your head.
May I add something, Jim?
Yes, Karen.
Disembodied voice in the room. I will also suggest that you consider keeping your topic fairly broad. The goal is not to get someone to say the right answer. The goal is to see where they go with a topic. So you want to kind of give them some free rein, at least some headroom to, the goal would be to see that if you give everyone the same topic, that you still get 4 different presentations.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if I were going to pick between those two that you're throwing out, I like the first one better because, I just think it gives someone room to really show their interest, show their strength, show, kind of that
what
vision.
they gravitate towards. And
Yeah,
exactly. That's the strategic plan idea.
The strategic, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's my first thought.
I actually liked the other one better, because, of course, because I feel like it would answer a lot of what I want to know. Like, what's going to be your priority, like when you first step in the door? Who are you going to be paying attention to? Who are you going to engage with? What is your style? I just feel like it could tell us, I guess like you're saying, but it kind of maps out for me a picture of how they're seeing engaging and becoming a leader of this place.
I guess my fear with that is that they're all going to be like, well, I'm going to get to know the organization. You know what I mean?
I wondered about
in
that
various
too.
ways, right?
I had an idea that was similar, and I would love Karen's opinion about whether this is actually a terrible idea, which would be, they're giving the annual report 5 years hence, and what are they telling us about? As a chance to get beyond that first year.
That's cool.
And it would
That's a cool idea.
help us have some of those sense of priorities and what they care about. I would imagine they'd all be really different. It also gets us out from under COVID a little bit. Everyone's going to be stuck addressing COVID, continuing to address it in that first year.
So the idea is essentially to say, it's 5 years from now, and you're giving your annual report on library activities. What happened that year?
Yeah, and potentially framing it in such a way that they don't have to tell us everything, right? But focus on, some key initiatives or whatever, however we want to do that, but to put it a little bit farther ahead.
Well, I personally love that idea. I think it's a very creative way to approach what does the future look like.
Yeah, fortunately, it's a public meeting, so we can steal that. Thank you, Molly.
It's like not CCBY or whatever.
It's a great idea.
Attribution.
And a hint to candidates, a smart candidate will also look at the strategic plan and build it into a,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I think that actually does, it kind of combines the two
Yeah.
things.
Other ideas that are floating around or inclinations?
It's like so difficult to tell, but Dharma, does that satisfy? I can't tell you.
Yes, sorry, I was nodding. I was just thinking through about the fact that like we have a lot of opportunity to ask specific questions
Yes.
about like how are you going to engage the community, things that I really do want to know, but this is just one part of a very full visit, so.
Yeah. All right, well, why don't we go with this 5-year prompt?
If it's going to be in the future, do they get to wear costumes?
I sure hope so. If it's in
You
the
laugh,
future,
but
are
that
they
is
wearing
happening.
masks? That's what I want to know. All right.
You laugh, but that has happened.
Yes.
Oh, costume? Wait.
It has happened once. That's all I can say.
Wow.
I do seem to recall we did interview a candidate who mentioned costumes very specifically. So you never know what to expect.
I used to go to a different art librarian conference that had a costume element to it. It was like a evening costume party. It was a very big surprise when I was first, like a grad student, I went to it, but anyway.
All right, it sounds like we're doing the 5-year prompt.
Yes. It's a
Okay,
good
so
one.
it's year 5 and you're giving your annual report. What happened that year?
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Terrific. Well, thanks, Karen and Brian. That was the part I wanted you to hang around for, so that you would know what we were doing. I think that is all to update on now. I want to also let you know that I'm back talking to our lawyers again, our general counsel, about how to handle negotiations and contracting and so forth. And so we are I'm in that conversation again. And I also just want to acknowledge that Sherlanya and Karen are going to run point on a lot of the logistics from, rooms and food and people and moving staff and candidates around, and we really appreciate that. Thank you. All right.
We do too.
I have a calendar question.
Yes.
I've been holding this whole week. Can I release everything that's not on this thingy?
Unless we're like a hung jury and we need to come back on, we should be able, this is all we need you to commit to for now.
Thank you.
Yeah. We do, by the way, I believe we have another public meeting in March. We have a regular business meeting later in the month, so just don't forget about that. And that one is on a Tuesday. We should, if I remember, the 22nd. Thank you. So it's the following week.
Yes, really soon after.
Yeah. So just remember, and then we'll move into our new reality. Any other search-related questions, thoughts? Awesome.
One last question is, so would the start date be April 1? Is that
The start date will depend on the candidate, and I think all of these candidates have significant jobs, which would require a significant period of, sort of ramping down in order to ramp up. And I think that would be what we would negotiate with the candidate, the start date.
I would agree. Most people in roles at the level that these individuals are, aside from your internal candidate, which might be a little bit more, easy to navigate, they will probably need to give a month's notice at least.
That makes sense.
All right, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
all your work, search committee.
Okay. I believe that moves us to, a fun thing. We are opening one chapter and closing another with Director Parker tonight, and we have a resolution of appreciation to Josie Parker upon her retirement. And we're going to read the whole thing. And should we do a read around like we did last time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What page is it on?
We've
Sorry.
got it
This
in
is
a.
separate.
It's like separate.
Oh.
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay. So, I'll start and we'll go, is that clockwise? Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Whereas Josie Parker has announced her plans to retire from her tenure as director of the Ann Arbor District Library, AADL.
Whereas her generous and innovative leadership has contributed to decades of extraordinary programs, collections, customer service, and community engagement, and that AADL has thrived under her leadership.
Whereas, under Josie's leadership, AADL has been consecutively named a Library Journal 5-star library for the past 13 years, a designation based on library usage stats like circulation, door count, and event attendance.
Whereas in fiscal year 2020, AADL's libraries welcomed more than 1.2 million people through the doors, with library events drawing nearly 120,000 attendees.
Whereas Josie was responsible for overseeing the evolution of AADL into what it is today.
Whereas this evolution includes the addition of AADL's unusual tools collection, which offers telescopes, musical instruments, science tools, giant games, and other items for use by the public.
Whereas Josie oversaw the establishment of AADL's own publicly owned publishing imprint, Fifth Avenue Press.
Whereas Josie oversaw the expansion of the AADL summer reading program to create a wildly popular summer game.
Whereas Josie oversaw the transition of the Washtenaw Library for the Blind and Print Disabled from the county to the Ann Arbor District Library in 2008.
Whereas, in collaboration with the Ann Arbor News, Josie oversaw the storage and digitization of its vast collection of photos and articles in the AADL archives.
Whereas in 2013, AADL also partnered with the African American Cultural and Historical Museum of Washtenaw County to launch the Living Oral History Project, an ongoing collection of interviews, photos, and articles that serve as a roadmap illustrating what African Americans in the Ann Arbor area witnessed, experienced, and built in the community.
Whereas Josie also oversaw the construction of 3 new branch libraries and the remodeling and reimagination of a 4th branch at the Westgate Shopping Center.
Whereas both Mallett's Creek and Traverwood Branch each earned awards from the American Institute of Architects for Design.
Whereas Josie was named an honorary affiliate member of AAA Michigan in 2010, a rare honor for a non-architect or designer, for her stewardship of AADL and its new libraries. Now, therefore,
The board resolves to officially thank Josie Parker for 20 years of outstanding service as library director to the Ann Arbor District Library, that it has been a great honor and privilege for members of the board of directors to serve during her tenure, and that her warmth, compassion, and steadfast leadership will be missed. That all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. Can I hear a motion to approve this resolution?
so moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
And I'm sure there's going to be some discussion before we vote on it. We have a little gift for you, Josie.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that amazing recitation of a whole lot of words and some of it I've forgotten about.
And I have a box for you to bring that home.
Okay.
So,
Thank you very much.
Well, I think Ed Serval hit the nail on the head when he said sweet, direct, and confident. And I'm going to ask you over a drink later, when that's got you in trouble, how'd you get out of it? Because I could use that advice.
Okay, it's got me sweeter.
Yeah. I just cannot thank Josie enough for being such an incredible colleague in this work, and for allowing me to be a peer to her in this role, even though she has many, many, many more years of experience doing exceptional leadership work than like any of us have. It has really just been a privilege to work with you on this board and to also be your president in this period where you're transitioning to retirement. And I do think something that you said when we were talking to you earlier in director's evaluation, that your job was to say yes. And I honestly, you know, it's just, the evidence is all around us, even in this room, which looks entirely different than it did when I started on the board 8 years ago. Thank you. I mean, I dream of, you know, having like an ounce of the leadership capability that you have demonstrated over all these years here at the library, and we just really appreciate your service to our community.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josie. You don't have to come up here.
I'll say it in the microphone for the recording, how much I appreciate the list of things and that you've highlighted in the resolution, the conversations we've had about what the library's doing. What I will say, you talk about leadership, what I've never been is an elected official. And I admire people who step up to do that. Because if you weren't doing what you do, I couldn't do what I do. And I really do appreciate all this work, clearly a ton of work that has gone into a transition. And I thank you, and it comforts me to know the team that you are and the team that they are will complement and move the library forward in a wonderful way. And I thank you for the opportunities. I truly do. It's been amazing. So thank you. And the community. And for me, it's always been about the people. It'll still be about the people. And it's about being sweet, Jim, but at the same time being very direct.
I know some others may want to say things, so I want to open the floor to my fellow trustees.
I just feel really lucky. I think, like everyone that's come into contact with your leadership style has said, I've definitely learned a lot just by being in your orbit. And you're just such a good model, and I'm glad that I got to work with you for the short time that I did. Thank you.
I don't do well with change and transitions, believe it or not. But I think, Josie, you being you and you sort of saying, this is okay, you know, and helping us trust everyone that you set up to help run this in your absence while we work through this transition has really made me very comfortable. I'm not stressed about it. And I think I just really appreciate that about you, because I normally just cannot, you know what I mean? I would just make you stay. But I have, yeah, too much respect for you, and you've totally earned this. And thank you for believing that we can take this on, you know, and make it work.
Yeah, I'm a little mad that I didn't get to work with you for very long. But in this process of everybody saying goodbye to you and of us starting to look for a new director, it's been really wonderful for me as a new board member to learn everything that you have done, right? All the stuff that's in the resolution and the stories that people told yesterday, and seeing the people who showed up to honor you really gave me a history lesson of the last 20 years of the library that has been so helpful to me as a new trustee. So I have known you for a long time, but haven't worked with you for too long, and it's been really, over the last months, really interesting and informative and touching to hear all of the stories that I've heard.
I mean, I don't have much to add other than I feel similarly to Anna with my biggest disappointment is that I don't get to spend more time learning from you and working with you. I think in the short time we've known each other, which has been essentially the time I've served on this board, you know, I have an even greater amount of respect for your leadership style and the person that you are. As much as I've loved the institution and recognized how much a part of that you've been, like getting to know you has been very special. So I appreciate it. And I'm sad I don't get to spend time with you, but I'm very happy that you get the time you have in your retirement, and you've more than earned it. We are all grateful for you.
I have, oh, can I, go ahead. So I have this memory of the first time that I met you. I was a baby librarian coming to an event at the AADL, and I remember just being awed by your presence and just everything about the way that you were so approachable and so accessible, and at the same time so clearly such a leader. And you've really, I think, been a model for generations of librarian at this point. I'm not a librarian anymore, but I still feel that sense of like aspiration. And so I think, yeah, thank you for that.
So I told a story yesterday, and I've learned that it's easier to say emotional things when you're wearing a mask, so I'm going to make myself take it off. So I'm going to be like, so you get what you just like deserve in terms of connection. So I told this story yesterday that I wanted to share more about tonight. But basically, I remember sitting in your office with Jim, and it was probably Lynn. We were the executive committee at the time, and you had served us LaCroix because, like a few years ago, like LaCroix were like the thing that we all needed to have at all times, and our phones were charging all over the room, and like periodically, one of us would just get up from the meeting and like walk across the room and look at our phones, and we were probably also eating, like just food that we had in our backpacks. And I remember like thinking that we must have felt like a little chaos to you. And the reason that I bring this up is because I realize that the next generation always probably feels like a little chaos to the generation that is currently in a role like a director or running anything. And the reason I want to be you when I grow up is because I think you have a choice when you're in the role that you were in to either like dig in your heels, and I think that would be the easy choice, and say, well, that's not how we do things, and we're going to do things the way we always have done. Or you can do, as I have seen you do over the 15 years that I've been in your orbit, and like you have always, I have witnessed, kept an open mind and an open heart. And I feel like that is how we have gotten where we have gotten. That you see in people what they can bring and move forward into the future. And that is rare. And now the older I get, the more I realize that is so hard. It's so hard to do that because it requires humility and it requires sort of questioning everything you already think that you know. And to truly listen to like the people who are in your room and to encourage them to be the best that they can be. And you know, I see the people in this room. I see Sherlanya and Eli and Glenn, like people that I worked with when I was here. And I think you have flourished in this place, and it is because you have made this place what it is. And so thank you for being you. And you're an inspiration to me and to so many people, and I'm sad to see you go, but I am also really excited for you because I know that you are so much looking forward to what you will do next. Thank you, Josie.
Well, if there's no further discussion, I believe we have to vote on this resolution.
Roll call, please.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I would hope not. Well, Josie, the staff has helped us organize having this resolution graphically designed, and we will sign it and frame it for you as a memento of your time here and with us. Thank you. Well, we'll think of you when you're holding on to that rope on the sailboat, trying to keep yourself upright. We have a couple items of business left. We need to vote for closed session at the end of tonight's board meeting, brief closed session for discussion of real estate. Can I hear a motion for closed session at the end of tonight's meeting for real estate?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you, Scott. And any discussion? All right. We need a roll call vote.
Dharma Eklund,
Yes.
Molly Kleinman,
Yes.
Jim Leha,
Yes.
Bree Moore,
Yes.
Anna Solomon,
Yes.
Scott Trudeau,
Yes.
Jamie Vanderburg.
Yes.
Motion passes. And now I need to hear a motion to have closed session at the March 22nd meeting for discussion of real estate and labor negotiations.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion?
Is that gonna be before or after?
Will be before 6 p.m. Any other discussion, questions? All right. Roll call vote?
Dharma Eklund,
Yes.
Molly Kleinman,
Yes.
Jim Leha,
Yes.
Bree Moore,
Yes.
Anna Solomon,
Yes.
Scott Trudeau,
Yes.
Jamie Vanderburg.
Yes.
Motion passes. Terrific. Have we any additional citizens' comments?
I have not received any.
Thank you, Karen. All right, well, that brings us to going to recess for closed session. I know it's been a long night, so we will try to be brief. I think we're going to go back into the other room, and then we'll close out for the evening.